All right, we're back here with another podcast here. Today we're going to be talking about the future games. It's been kind of a crazy few weeks here with the Illinois State games, Wisconsin State games, and then the future games before all that. So kind of looking at the future games now, we're going to kind of talk through our roster and kind of how every player did on Team Illinois. It was a pretty good week down there at Lake Point for us. So Drew, I'm going to turn it over to you and kind of have you, start us off here.
Thanks, Gavin. No, like you said, future games, a huge event we put on. In my opinion, it dominates what we do throughout the entire year with Prep Baseball Illinois. That and the state games, basically everything we base our entire season off of is based off of the future games. From running events in the winter to try to get some follows and, future game follows, guys we know we need to see in the spring. So we go out all spring season to watch these players, and we try, it is our goal as a staff, as a state, to bring down the best uncommitted prospects that we can find in the state of Illinois. So, like I said, it starts in the winter with all of our preseason IDs, our all states. It goes into the spring with us tracking those guys that showed well in the winter, and actually seeing them perform on the field, and then continues to go into the summer. In mid-June, we still are filling out our roster. Early July, we're trying to piece together the final players of our roster because we take it that serious that we want to find the best players, and we are going to scour the state and do whatever it takes to at least do our due diligence on knowing as many players and getting as many in-game at-bats, innings, if we're talking about a pitcher, actually facing live hitters, as we possibly can. And, it's not a perfect science. There are players that get left off the list every single year that probably deserve to be, on the future games roster. That's the nature of the beast. We hate it as a staff. We always try to do the absolute best we can do. But the beauty of it, too, is we now run the Illinois State games 2 weeks after the future games. And those guys that maybe got left off the list that have a little chip on their shoulder, well, here's your opportunity. In front of this year, over 50 schools, close to 90 coaches were at the Illinois State games. And there were a number of players that went out and did their thing and kind of proved to us like, hey, I probably should have been there. One name that just jumps off the page to me is Ryan Harris at Stevenson High School. He was up to 92.6 at the Illinois State games. Really athletic, long frame, clean arm. The command was scattered, but as far as pure arm talent, he's got some of the best pure arm talent in the state. So that's just one right off the list. But getting to Team Illinois, the guys that did go down to the future games, first and foremost, it was one of my favorite years doing this. I absolutely loved the roster we ended up putting together. I loved the kids in the dugout. I had an absolute blast. Just guys that really, really cherished being there in front of those college coaches. I think our national account put out that there were 425 plus college coaches there, which was a record. So that is extremely cool to see. And especially when we have the senior future game guys this year for the first time, those 2025s that are still uncommitted, getting some looks. But this is the event. This is the biggest uncommitted event in the entire country. And Team Illinois really, really showed out, in my opinion. Went 2-1 on the week, but just the performances from the individuals and the way they seemed to gel as a team was really cool to see. And just being able to be in the dugout and coach that team, I felt pretty blessed. Just going through the list, there's a lot of guys to get to. I don't know if we'll touch on every single guy. But positionally, I thought it was as strong and as deep as a group as we've ever brought. One of our position players is already committed to Kentucky, Nolan Ramley, just right off the top. He's long been one of the toolsiest prospects in the state. He was pretty much the lone outfielder, the solo outfielder that we brought on the roster. We brought a bunch of infielders, middle infielders, guys with versatility that could play multiple spots, had to spend some time out in the outfield. But that was really cool to see, like within a week or two of the future games, Nolan Ramley already off the board to a big-time program. And then just working our way across the list and guys that, are bound to be getting some love, some more than others. It always happens at different times. for different players. Up the middle of the field, those high-end tool guys, left-handed pitchers, left-handed hitters, those guys tend to get plucked rather quick. And some other guys, it takes a little longer. But does not mean that they're a bad player by any means. And looking at the catchers, we brought 3 catchers. We brought Max Heineman, Brandon Thompson, and Dylan Kassab. And I personally want to touch on Brandon Thompson. He was a guy we did track. We've been tracking for a while. We tracked him at the Illinois State games last year. Saw him again this winter at the preseason All-State. I know Tyler Defaball went out and got a look at St. Viator this spring and saw him and came back with glowing reviews. We saw him this summer. Diego got a look at him up there in Wisconsin at a tournament. I saw him briefly floating around the Chicago area at some tournaments. The defense is as real as it gets in the state. Like for me, and I told him this, at the event, I thought he was one of the top defensive catchers there. When you look at the foundation of what he has, with the receive ability, with the block ability, and then the way the arm works, and the body type, like it's an athletic body with strength and with more strength to come. Really, really blew me away just with the foundation that he's working with. And I think he's got a chance to be one of the top catchers in the Midwest, maybe one of the top catchers in the country, but we'll see. There's still plenty of time for him, but I love it. And then you look at for him, just his offensive metrics as well. Tyler, I think you brought it up in one of our chats that he had some of the best batted ball, data points during the workout day compared to all of the future gamers. Was in a top 10 of a number of different categories. So there's a lot of bat strength. He got into a couple balls in game, but I just think, man, defensively what he can do, it is a big arm. I don't really care about the measurables. Like it's an 80 plus arm. It's a sub 2 pop time, but it's on top. It's short. It's how it should look. It comes out on a line. It plays true. He actually gets some downhill tilt to his throws, which is telling me he gets out front. He's aggressive with his arm. He's not afraid to throw behind runners. And as he just solidifies his entire game, he's a guy to watch. Max Heineman, I thought he really worked and showed vast improvements behind the plate than I had ever seen before. Very active, willing, blocker, receiver, bunch of energy. Just really liked the way he was trying to present pitches. And then he's really offensive. Right-handed hitter, compact swing, uses the whole field, was on a number of barrels throughout the week, has always been, a natural hitter. Ever since he was younger, he's long been in the prep baseball database. He was a junior future gamer as an 8th grader, comes from a great family. And loved having Max in the dugout. And then you turn it over to Dylan Kassab. Dylan caught a little bit for us, played some first base. Really, to me, Dylan Kassab is a right-handed hitter with all kinds of thump. He is a strong-bodied, middle-of-the-order presence. Great kid. Played the game with a ton of passion. Always seemed to be having a blast, and he's a tough kid. Had a collision at first base in the very first game with Wisconsin, and I think he got dinged up a lot more than he let on, and just kind of wore it and kept playing and didn't say a word and was a pleasure in the dugout. And every time he swung, you kind of hold your breath because that ball comes off his bat a little different. So that's me getting long-winded there on the catchers, and I want to turn it over to you guys for anything else you may have had on those catchers that I missed, or if you want to go on to a different position group, feel free. But that's what I had on our trio of catchers at the future games.
I thought touching on Max Heineman here real quick. When you're at an event like the Future Games, you're catching a bunch of guys that you've probably never caught before. You're not very familiar with them. And they're also throwing 1-2 inning stints. So for the most part, those guys are blowing it out. I thought the workability, the blocking, the willingness to chest up the baseball, the willingness to work laterally and throw himself at the baseball really stood out to me. And you pair that with his ability to hit, that's definitely going to really pique some interest for a guy with that profile. So I thought he was a big winner behind the plate with his willingness to work.
I'll jump over to Thompson really quick. He was a guy that I actually saw as a freshman for St. Viator. Head coach Terry Bina kind of tipped me off to him. I just asked him the typical, hey, who do you like? And he underclassman, and he's like, yeah, this kid can really catch. And I mean, even in my brief look a year ago or even more than that now, I mean, it was the same thing it is now. Like he's a glove first catcher right now, and we kind of knew that going into it. But he really proved this at the future games at the bat. Like the bat's starting to come around too, and if it or when it does, watch out because then he's more of a complete package. But yeah, I thought he was really impressive.
Yeah, and just I'll add one little thing on Kasab too. Kind of touched on it in our future games recap story that we posted earlier this week, but he got a ton of time at first base down at Lake Point as well. And there's just one play that really sticks out to me. He's playing probably normal depth or even deep at first base. There's a foul ball or pop fly in foul territory, and he, busts his tail, makes a diving attempt at this ball that's right at the cutout of the dugout, which is really close to home plate. Like he ranged a long way for this ball. Didn't come up with it. I think he even slid into the fence a little bit, got up like it was nothing. I just thought it really, epitomized how that kid plays the game and the type of, heart and attitude that kid plays with. So just wanted to mention that on Kasab.
Love it. And, moving on, mentioned Nolan Ramley in the outfield. One other guy we want to maybe touch on here that's traditionally a catcher. He's versatile, can do a little bit of everything. You look at his tools, he ran a 6.66 at the future games, is Adam Swanson out of Ottawa. He was asked to play a lot of outfield. I think he played a little bit of both this summer, but Adam Swanson is a guy that really, really strong, compact, athletic, right-handed hitter. Put up big numbers during the workout day. I think he had a max distance of 381. He is going to be a very interesting prospect because he can kind of do a little bit of everything. I don't know where his future lies defensively yet because he's athletic enough to play the outfield. He's got plenty of arm strength. And he also has plenty of arm strength behind the plate and some attributes to like there. So he's a guy to follow in our outfield who played outfield for Team Illinois. He's definitely a guy to follow and can kind of fit him into those catchers we brought as well. And moving on to the last position group really that we need to touch on is the large crop of infielders that we brought. A number of guys, and I mentioned it earlier, some of them were asked to play multiple positions during the event, but just going through the list, we had Landon Tomey at Nazareth. We had Cameron Jenkins from Oswego. We had Jory Crocker from Willowbrook. We had Brody Landgraf, first base from Columbia. We had Hunter Ball from Edwardsville, Gavin Michaels from Normal Community, and we had Johnny Nelson from Oak Park River Forest. So, all of those guys except Brody Landgraf. Landgraf's a left-handed bat, a monster of a human being, first base only, type of guy on our roster. Everybody else could have played shortstop and really was athletic enough to play all over the infield. The two guys that were really asked to bounce around the most were Johnny Nelson and Gavin Michaels. Johnny Nelson was a guy that I think Peter Hammett saw this spring playing for OPRF. I know Coach Campbell over there, the head coach at OPRF, really likes him as well. And there's a reason a lot of people speak highly of Johnny. He is an outstanding individual and human being and was a pleasure to have in the dugout and seems to really, really have a good head on his shoulders. He's highly athletic. He's very versatile. He could play shortstop, and he's got a frame that you can envision moving over to third someday just with how physical I think he's going to get. Really, really good baseball player that can do a little bit of everything. Had one of his firmest barrels of the week in the nightcap, game 3 there against Team Missouri, got it going a little bit, but showed glimpses throughout the week. And I'm a huge fan of his upside. And just if there's a guy I want to bet on, like I would bet on him, whether it's, in baseball or just in life. He really impressed me. And then Gavin Michaels. I can't say enough good things about Gavin as well. Ultra athletic, high upside individual that came onto our radar late. He was a guy that I got a call on and was like, hey, you should probably come watch this guy. He's had some schools following him around the last couple weekends. He can really run. The bat's coming around. So we get out and see Gavin Michaels, and he's playing shortstop, and he's a really fluid, loose mover, can throw from multiple slots. I liked the defense. He had a bounciness and like a pace to his game. And then I was getting like 4-2 down the line on him every time from the right side. You watch the swing, it's, backspin, middle of the field contact, and he goes down to the future games. And to me, every time I saw him from that time I saw him this summer, the more I liked him. The more he grew on me, the more I was like, man, this guy can really, really play. And the one thing that he does every day, and it shows up different on the field than most of the other guys out there at the future games, not just on Team Illinois, was how he runs the bases and the foot speed. Took second on a walk where the ball four got away from the catcher. Not even the fact that he took second. It was more the anticipation, the zero hesitation, the ball playerness, the I'm thinking two on a walk because I knew it got away from him and I know I can have the speed to at least force a throw and see what happens. And he made it to second easily. But he is a true game changer on the bases. And for a lot of guys, like when I watch them play, they get to first base and they think, oh, my job's done. Like I got a hit or I walked and now I'm at first. Like his job's just getting started when he gets on the bases. It's what can I do to impact the game? What can I do to steal 90 feet? Reading balls in dirt, taking extra bases on balls in the gap, thinking two out of the box when he's hitting. I was blown away at what he could do on the bases, and I know there's college programs out there that really value that. So I know I'm going off, but I think it's a lost art somewhat in today's day and age with guys that really know how to run the bases and can impact a game on the bases, and he is that guy. He could play shortstop. He could play second. We put him out in center field a bunch. I was getting 4.18s down the line at the future games, like basically nothing over 4.3 from the right side. He does kind of hit off his front foot a little bit, but the bat is extremely flat through the zone. He's got easy athletic twitch, and the ball comes off middle of the field, backspin contact. And as he grows and develops and gets stronger where he doesn't have to get so much off that backside and onto that front foot, I think the hit tool is going to just explode at some point. And if you want to talk about ceilings, I think 6 years down the road, when you look at Gavin Michaels, who knows where he could be. I think there's a massive ceiling there. So I'm going off on some of those guys. I'm going to at least give you guys the opportunity to jump on board on any of them, and then we can keep going through the list if you want.
Johnny and Gavin are two guys that you really, just talking about them doesn't do it justice. You got to go see them play. Because Gavin, like, he's a lot of fun to watch. Like, everything you said, he can defend it. He can swing it, too. But running the bases, watching him run the bases is one of the most fun I had scouting all summer. Like, every time he got on, it was just 90 feet, scoring, 90 feet, scoring. And then Johnny, like, the way that kid just handles his at-bats in-game, like, I like it in batting practice, too. Like, he's got a ton of power, a lot of raw power in the swing. But, I mean, he's just all over the barrel every time I see him. He can defend it, too. And like you said, two just great kids. I could not agree with you more on how you said this group was just, not different, but one of the more fun groups we had collectively. And, yeah, it was just a ton of fun overall.
I mean, let's be honest here with that. Like, most of these players that get invited to the future games are high-level players that play high-level travel ball. They get to play at big-time facilities. They get to play in front of coaches all summer. And there's some guys that expect to be invited to the future games, or, it's just another event for them. And I didn't feel that at all from these players. They all cherished the opportunity, were super thankful, and went out and showed that on the field. They played like it was, their last game ever playing, and they had a ton of energy and a ton of fun, and just a breath of fresh air. The whole group was kind of the way what hit me. So yeah, if you guys don't have anything else on those guys, I think we can turn the page here. Jory Crocker and Hunter Ball were two guys that we invited as two-way players. Both have a lot of ability on the mound, and both are really, really, really interesting position players. Jory Crocker, Willowbrook. I love it positionally. It's one of the highest wasted prospects you'll see out there at the future games. Wide shoulders. Physically, he's nowhere close to being done. And everything he does on the field, he makes it look easy. He makes it feel like it's just routine and like he's out in the backyard playing catch. Slow rollers that he's got to come in on 100 miles an hour, all out. Like you would never think he's going all out. He controls his at bats. You were talking about Johnny Nelson doing that, Peter, and I think Jory Crocker does that really well. Like he never seems to be sped up at the plate. And then like he was on some velo with some loud barrels. So I really like Jory. I think he can play shortstop. And then he got on the mound and there's all kinds of extension and intriguing metrics there and up to 89. And I don't know where his best, future will be. For me, it's don't put down the bat and stop playing shortstop until they make you. And I feel the same way about Hunter Ball. He was one of the more fundamentally sound players we had on the team. He's been a varsity starter at Edwardsville. That's been, state champions here. Is one of the top programs in the state. And he's been stuck behind Lucas Krebs, who's going to Illinois as a shortstop. So he plays second base for Edwardsville, but he'll be the up-and-coming shortstop when his time comes here down the road. It's just a really, really heady, good baseball player that is only going to get better as he gets stronger. And then I love it on the mound. He was 83, 85 in his one inning stint, but it is so much attitude and moxie without being overly that way. It is just so much inner confidence, and the way he catches the baseball back from the catcher and the way he takes the sign and the way he gets into his delivery. That's the guy I want on the mound for me if I'm coaching. Like there is no there's no second guessing going on. It is, I'm the guy, I've got the ball, I'm controlling the game, and here it is. And he's got 3 pitches for strikes, all kinds of feel. He knows he's just got a lot of baseball feel. And I'm a huge Hunter Ball guy and a big Jory Crocker guy. And I'll turn the page over to you guys if you have anything else on them.
You said it about Jory. I mean, I'll talk about both of them, but we'll start with Jory. The frame is like, for me, maybe the most interesting thing about him. Then you look at his dad. I mean, his dad was a Division I football player, and he's jacked and he's huge too. So there's just more to come. And I don't know what I like him more as either, but like you said, he should just keep swinging it till someone tells him not to. And then about Baugh, I really like Baugh on the mound. I didn't get to see much of him positionally, but I love the way it worked on the mound. I agree. I think there's a lot of calm confidence, the same as with Jory too. Like they're both very confident, but not outwardly. They're confident, but it's not in a bad way at all. It helps them. And yeah, 3 pitches for strikes can really spin it. I think there's a ton more to tap into there for Baugh too, and for both of them really. I think they're 2 really interesting prospects that we brought down.
And the one thing I wanted to mention about Jory too was his the way he approached every game. He was just so quiet. If he struck out, he didn't really say anything. It was just back to the dugout, business as usual, go out to the field, do my thing. I really liked his mental approach. I thought you could tell he was really just locked in, and he wasn't letting himself get too high or too low, which I thought was really important at an event
and
like
I think that's him. And I think that's just his demeanor, and I love that. Because everybody has different styles to the way they go about their business, to the way they go about their gameplay. And that is Jory, and I think that will be a huge value for him moving forward. Being able to handle failure and not showing emotion and just continuing to play pitch after pitch after pitch, just flush whatever happened and not get too high. I mentioned he had some loud barrels. Well, just keep going pitch after pitch. And I love to see that out of Jory. Getting on to our last 3 infielders here. Not really sure how I want to go about talking about him or breaking him down, but Brody Landgraf, maybe we'll just start with him because holy cow, did I think if there was one guy that helped his stock the most, especially in the last game of the event, it had to be Brody Landgraf. First thing I think I mentioned to Diego during the workout day was, hey, Diego, like I just brought Team Illinois up and was talking to him about, hey, this is how the day is going to go. Here, here's where you need to be running the 60. I was like, Brody Landgraf is a monster of a human being. Like, I think you start there. He looks like he could be an Illinois SEC type of offensive lineman. It is just a physical, athletic, strong body. But he moves. He moves on the field. He moves around the bag at first base. He stole a bag in the last game of the event. Like, so, all right, we're just starting there with the physicality, the body. Now, okay, he can move. He's a left-handed bat. And out of all of Team Illinois, they were hitting off the hack attack during the workout day in BP this year for the first time. And he might have had the most trouble out of anybody hitting off the hack attack. And, thank goodness in a game you hit off a live arm, because he had no problem off a live arm. 4 for 4 in the last game. He won the Dick's Sporting Good Player of the Game MVP award. And there was zero cheap about it. It was some of the loudest contact of the entire event, at bat after at bat after at bat. It is ultra physical. He backspins the baseball to the pull side. It's a flat path. And the one thing that right now he hammers baseballs. He also worked about a 12, 13, 14 pitch at bat against a Missouri arm, Diego, that I can let you kind of fill in the high levelness of that arm. But like, the guy could really hit. I can't say enough about Brody, and then as a person as well. But go ahead, Diego. I'm sure you're chomping at the bit. You've seen him for a long time.
First off, you talk about physicality. We have him verified height, weight, 6'4", 230. And yeah, to me, the most memorable moment of the future games for me was that at bat to kick off the first game. He was our second hitter to bat game 3 under the lights against Tyler Putnam, who very well could be the number 1 player in Missouri's 26 class. Like, he is about as high level of a guy that is in that state, regardless of class, honestly. They are also travel ball teammates in the summer. So he just sits there and spoils, and I'm talking like 91, 92, 93, breaking ball. He threw him a changeup, and then he gets a hanger and bangs it into the right center gap for a single. 4 for 4 that day. Ultra physical. He's been doing it with the bat for a while now. He was on Columbia back-to-back years when they made it to state with Dominic Vagley leading the way, getting starts as a freshman, and was really good at the state tournament 2 years ago as an impact bat. He drilled a triple at a pro stadium that was, there was TrackMan wasn't on, but it was very close to triple digits, if not past that mark. And honestly, like, aside from the baseball, probably my favorite kid to be around in the dugout the whole time. Like, even on the workout day, the infielders are taking ground balls. He's the only first baseman there, and no complaints whatsoever. Like, he must have caught 85 baseballs by himself at first base. Just a guy that loves playing the game. He's also a basketball player. It's a testament to the athleticism, and a pretty good one, too. That's a guy that definitely made a name for himself at the event.
I love it. And like you said, our entire staff came away blown away by him, just his personality. There's all kinds of personality in there, and he's a great, great kid. I cannot wait to see what he does, where he makes a commitment, what he does in the future. To me, it's a guy that could play this game for a really long time. Because there's an advanced field to hit, and there's advanced power, and it's left-handed, and he can move. That's a guy to write down. I think he's going to play this game for a long time. Last 2 infielders to mention, 2 of the more intriguing infielders, in my opinion, and maybe the highest level prospects, Landon Tomey and Cameron Jenkins. Both should be sitting towards the very top of our 2026 class. Landon Tomey is as pure of a bat as you're going to find, and as pure of a left-handed bat as you're going to find. We have long said that there's been minimal swing and miss. He started at Nazareth since he was a freshman playing second base, and all he's done is continue to get better. When he was a freshman and we locked in on him, we've collected a lot of at-bats on Landon Tomey over the years, and I've seen minimal swing and miss. I could probably count it on one hand. And there was minimal swing and miss at the future games, and he was unfazed by velocity. He was unfazed by spin. He was unfazed by left-handed, right-handed matchup. It is an ultra polished approach. He is gap to gap and can stay inside the baseball and hit the ball just as hard to the opposite field as he can to the pull side. The athleticism is ticking up. I mean, the way he's rounding the bag, the way he's playing with pace, the way his feet are moving on the infield. He made every play on the infield this week. I think that impressed me just as much as the bat. Was like he was steady Eddie and a vacuum out there on the infield. I love it. I can't say enough good things about Landon. I mean, I think we all believe that he's just going to continue to get more physical. And then Cameron Jenkins is, I mean, that's the way you draw it up. It is ultra athletic. It is a fluid, easy mover. He is a thoroughbred, in my opinion. Was also the QB1 at Oswego, which I don't think he's going to play football anymore. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, he's just another multi-sport, thoroughbred athlete. Can really, really swing it. Unfortunately for him, stole third base, dove into third base in the second game and jammed his finger really bad. So he did not play in the third game, but he did enough to, in my opinion, warrant every school there at least circling his name. He's a guy that can stick at shortstop. He's a guy that can hit in the middle of the order. It's legit. It's legit. So I can't say enough good things about Landon and Cameron. And I know you guys got some looks at Cameron early in the spring at the Kickoff Classic, and it just kind of built from there. But anything else you guys have on this roster, those guys?
Yeah, I mean, Cam, saw him early on, hit a home run in front of me. Seems like he bats leadoff on what like every team he plays for, whether it be high school or travel ball. And it's always a fun way to lead off the game when you have him up there. I mean, it's ace. He gets the ace swing off a lot, and he's always hunting early. And like he won't extend though. He'll hunt early, but he'll also sit back when he needs to. And I love the way he plays the infield. I mean, it's a like you said, a thoroughbred athlete. The way he can, the bounce that he has, the way he just floats around. I think he's a basketball player too. Like, and the coach from Oswego, he mentioned that he thought his like in-game IQ was maybe his best like attribute. So it's the full package with him. And then I really haven't personally gotten too many looks at Landon Tomei. So seeing him this for that week was like pretty eye-opening for me. Like the bat is real. It's gonna get stronger. Like the feel of the hit is what really stood out to me, and the bat to ball, like you guys talk about it all the time, but hadn't really seen it for myself in person. And yeah, it's real. And then, like I said, the more he fills out, it's just gonna be even more dangerous. And the glove was really good too. Like made every play. The foot speed's good. The glove works. Like those are just two really, really interesting guys that I'm really glad I got to see a good chunk of them that week.
Yeah, and with Landon, the thing that really impressed me is, aside from the stuff that you guys had mentioned, was his ability to understand the zone and not swing at pitches outside of the zone. There were so many times he was taking pitches that were super close, borderline strikes, and he'd take it for a ball, which I thought was super impressive and super advanced.
No, and I think like with Landon, like it's one of the slower heartbeats I think I've ever seen out of like a prospect in the few years I've been doing this. Like just that kid's overall maturity and how he approaches the game is like so beyond his years. Like if anybody hasn't seen it yet, like Gavin did a down the line segment with him down there. Like go give that a listen, go give that a watch. It's really impressive stuff from a 16-year-old. And then with Cameron Jenkins, like I believe Pete, Diego, and Gavin all saw him earlier this spring at Kickoff Classic. I hadn't seen him before. I remember him taking batting practice before the first game against Wisconsin, and it was just laser after laser after laser off the bat. And I remember getting in the car with Pete and Gavin after the day was done, just talking back on his batting practice earlier that day. It's super impressive. Just both these kids, man, just a lot to like there.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in on just how good of a kid Landon Tomei seems to be. I mean, probably the most thankful, member of Team Illinois. I can't even begin to tell you just how impressed I was with the thankfulness is probably not the right way. Just how much they appreciated the opportunity. which was really cool to see. But that's a long-winded look at the position players on Team Illinois. We had some high-level arms too. Probably too long of a list to mention every single guy, but I think the guy that turned the most heads, and I don't know if this is where we should lead off, but Connor Elenteny. Mount Carmel, long-bodied right-hander. Mount Carmel has 3 sophomore arms. We brought 2 of them. Jake Matisse was one of those guys on the outside looking in, and we love Jake Matisse. Absolutely love them. They've got 3 thoroughbreds over there at Mount Carmel. So it was a hard decision, not bringing Jake Matisse. I think he will be a very, very high-level arm down the road. But talking about the ones that we did bring, Connor Elenteny, he was, during the high school season, it was Tosi and Matisse going back and forth, leading these guys through the playoff run with Elenteny coming out of the pen. And Elenteny probably, if you had to win a game right now, wasn't, the most polished guy out of those 3 that you would give the ball to. Ian Tosi, competitive left-hander, but Connor Elenteny, as far as ceilings are concerned, one of the top ceilings in Illinois. It's through the roof. And I just saw he got MVP award at some other event he was just at. And I really am hoping that this Future Games performance that he put together, where he was, what was his final velocity? Was it 92?
93,
yeah, 92 something that rounded up to 93. But to me, it was more like the pure stuff was elite. The ease of the velo, the ability to land a breaking ball, the breaking ball action had gotten better from what I had seen. And he had his first outing, came back, had his second outing, had his first outing on Thursday, second outing on Saturday. And I just thought the mound presence on Saturday, the confidence had already ticked up a little bit in 2 days. And then leaving the Future Games, going and being an MVP at this other, event that he was just at. For me, man, I'm hoping it is just a springboard, because I thought when I saw him this spring, the pure stuff, the arm talent was there. And to me, it just looked like the confidence and the overall trusting of stuff was wavering. And man, if he just starts trusting his stuff and works fast and lets his defense work, and just, I think it's going to take off for him. But he was an arm that really stood out to me. I don't know if anybody wants to touch on, his performance down there. But just a name that I thought was a huge winner. I know we talked to some assistant coaches that were there floating around, some big schools that were saying he's a no-brainer.
Well, so just the one thing that I wanted to mention about Connor. So just talking to him in the dugout those couple days before the Future Games, we did a preview kind of for a preview podcast about the Future Games, and we had talked about him being a basketball player, but he wanted me to mention he was a JV basketball player, but he's a really good ping pong player and he's a good soccer player. So he just wanted me to make sure that everybody knew that he was a big time ping pong
Well, we'll
guy.
have to see how good he is at ping pong. I haven't played in a long time, but I consider myself above average. So let's bring it, Connor. I missed this. I didn't hear this before. I would have gotten a game going at the Future Games somehow. But no, that's good to hear. And I did know he was a basketball player, which those multi-sport guys, I love them. They're athletes. Our roster was full of them. They tend to have high ceilings. They tend to get better later. And that's what you want. You don't want to be at your best right now as a 16-year-old. You want to be at your best when you're 20, 21, 22, 25, 28, 30. Like, it's not about being good as an 8th grader. It's being, elite as a 15-year-old. It's about being elite when it matters and just continuing to get better. And I think Elenteny will continue to get better.
Yeah, he's only been on that trend so far. I saw him this past summer, scattered strikes, but shoot, man, when it comes out right, it comes out right, and it comes out about as good as anyone in the state, easily. Yeah, he was pounding the zone. I love the way it works, and he was repeating, which I think is plays into the strikes. He's long levered and athletic and loose, and that's hard to sync up, especially at that young age. And the more comfortable he gets with his body, the more strikes he'll throw and the better it'll be. But I definitely caught the increased confidence, the way he was kind of walking around and coming off that mound. Yeah, it's in there now
And
for
he
sure.
needs to be that guy. Because,
Yeah.
man, there's every kid in the state, I feel like, would want the pure stuff he has, or 98% of them. Patty Roth led off the event. He's long been one of our top prospects. And sorry if I'm turning the page here on Ellen Tenney if anybody else had anything to say, but he's always been a strike thrower. He's always been a guy that performs in game, and it was more of the same. Attacks hitters. It kind of gave up a cheap run in his first outing, his first inning of his outing. And what I loved about it was he just kind of shook it off. Like, it was a swinging bunt, guy on third, like, guy didn't barrel it. I don't know if they barreled a single ball against him that inning and they got a run off him. And he kind of understood that. Like, he knew he did his job. It was just one of those things, and just kind of continued to go about his business, landing the breaking ball for a strike, attacking with the fastball. It's, it hovers comfortably at like 88, 89, touching 90. But he can pitch, did his thing down there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Patty, because he's long been, one of the top right-handers in the state. And right behind him, we had Michael Pettit going, lefty from Lincoln Way West. We talked on him in some of our past podcasts that he kind of popped up this spring. The velo's been just steadily kind of going nuts. We saw it at like 86, and then it was like 87, 88, and I think he might have popped an 89 or maybe touched a 90 at the future games, but it's left-handed. It's really, really unique and interesting, and I think there's upside there, and the frame is really wiry, and he's got some longer levers. Like, I think there's a lot more there to come with Pettit as well, especially as he's so far from a finished product for me. Like, the secondary stuff, he's still figuring it out. Like, it shows glimpses of being okay. Like, that's going to be above average. Like, the changeup, I think, is probably currently his best secondary offering. But it's left-handed arm talent, and it's a young look. You got to bet on left-handed arm talent. So, Patty Roth and Michael Pettit, two arms that I thought threw really well for Team Illinois. I don't know if you guys had anything else on those guys.
Yeah, I love the way it works with Michael Pettit. We actually had him at 91 in Rantoul. So, yeah, we were like, who the heck is this kid just throwing on field 3 at like 8 p.m., just carving these kids up? But no, I love the way it works. Super high waist, like you said, a lot more to tap into there. And I actually went down and I watched him warm up in the bullpen before the first game, and I thought the break ball was really good. It was like a true bullet, like 2.8, kind of 1.7-ish, but like short and hard, and the changeup was really good too. I mean, I think the sky's the limit with him, and I mean, Patty, we already know Patty's one of the top arms in the state. I think you nailed it there too.
Sweet. I'm looking just kind of at our day one starters right now, going through the list, and Luke Blackwell threw 2 innings in a row there to finish off that game. And Diego, you've long seen Luke Blackwell. He's down there at Vailmeyer, small town kind of on the river south of St. Louis, tucked away. And talk to us about Luke, because I think it's really unique as well, and a kind of a tougher look for a right-handed hitter, and there's a lot of arm talent in there as well.
Yeah, definitely unconventional. Honestly, the biggest thing that stands out to me is he is another massive human being. 6'3", 200. He shook my hand on the first day. He's got really, really big hands. Like, the kind of hands that could throw a nasty changeup or even a really good splitter as he gets older. He threw in the rain. Like, he threw the last 2 innings for us. It was in the rain, pounding strikes in the upper 80s. Good little slider. To me, his best secondary is his changeup. Now, he's at Vailmeyer. It's a 1A high school. Probably doesn't have to turn to it as often. When I went down and saw him, he only really threw it in warm-ups, but it's got, like, it comes out of the same window as his fastball, kind of little parachute fading action. It's easy. It's not a lot of effort. It's a guy that I could see climbing. He's also a basketball player. It's a physical frame right now with plenty of room to add more as he gets older. That's a guy that's just waiting to pop. Clean a couple things up, and I really think he's just starting to scratch the surface of what he'll be.
What I like about him and his future is he strikes me as a strike-throwing competitor. Just seems like he loves to compete. And that was a small glimpse that I got there at the Future Games. But like you said, it was less than ideal conditions, and you would have never known. And one of the first times I ever saw Parker Detmers, I saw him throw in a less than ideal situation on a dirt mound when it was raining, and same deal. Like, you would have never known. Didn't lose a single thing from his stuff. And not saying that Luke Blackwell is Parker Detmers by any means, but more of the competitive strike throwing. I'll bet on this guy's future. Small town, massive human being, a lot to like there. Two other arms that threw on day one, and they're very different in the way they go about it, is Chase Lockwood and Caden Shatsiak. Shatsiak, I think, is Caden. I hope I'm getting it right. You told me how to say it. Shatsiak. You told me how to say it at the Future Game, so I apologize. But Chase Lockwood comes from a long line of good baseball players. Older brother's committed to Valpo, left-hand hitting infielder. His oldest brother is at Valpo as a pitcher. He is a pitchability right-handed arm that did not flash a ton of velo at the Future Games. Was like low to mid, but 3 pitches and dominated and worked quick, efficient innings, and loved the presence on the mound and loved the way that it worked. And all that's going to come for him is more velo down the road as he gets stronger and matures. He's already got the pitchability. He's got the secondary stuff, and the velo will come. Strike thrower. Like, he was exactly what he thought we would be, in my opinion, when we invited him with what he did down there. And to me, a college coach, an assistant that is good at what they do, can project on guys, dream on guys. Like, that's a guy that I could see being a nice little sleeper there for somebody doing their job down at the Future Games. And then Caden Shatsiak, Gavin, you could maybe even talk more on him if you want. But Brimfield High School, and popped this summer.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the frame. 6'3", 195. He's a big, strong kid, but he's got athleticism with it. It was kind of the same thing we saw down there in Rantoul. You know, it was up to 90.5. You know, throws the slider hard. It was 77 to 79. I mean, he's got a quick arm, good frame. I think he's going to continue to increase that velo, and I really like him. And, you know, a small town kid in that Peoria area. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Caden.
2 real pitches. Hasn't probably worked with that many, like, pitching guys. So get him a third pitch, keep cleaning him up, and, I mean, the sky's the limit there. And I'll go back to Chase really quick. I mean, he plays catch when he's pitching. It is so easy, repeatable. Like, he's never not going to throw strikes just because of how easy it is. The arsenal itself is really dynamic. Everything's moving. Like, the sinker, I mean, I don't know if he calls it one, but that's kind of what it does. Sinks, changeup moves that way too, breaking ball. Like, there's just more velo to come there. Like, it's just a matter of when, and it's probably going to be sooner than later.
By the way, going off of Caden, he was also at the Illinois State Games, and he's pretty legit positionally too in terms of physicality. In his BP round, he hit every single ball over 95 miles an hour. So at 100% hard hit rate, 101 mile or 100.1 mile per hour max EV. So you got a small town kid with that body that's doing it on both sides of the ball. Like, it's pretty interesting, man. It's pretty interesting.
When you speak of the frame, it is a cut up, chiseled, physical frame. It's impressive. And we mentioned Jory Crocker's dad earlier. Caden's got the same thing going on. His dad clearly gets after it. Looks like he could still play or get into any physical activity he needed to. So, Tyler, were you going to speak up there? I think I jumped in on you.
No, you're good. Just gonna touch on Chase one more time here, but like the fact that he was so true to himself down there, I think says a lot. I mean, we see a lot of kids that come down to the Future Games that, you know, just get up on the mound and maybe just try and chase velo, chase a certain number, and he didn't do that. It was, hey, I'm gonna be true to myself. It was just a really polished look, and you know, I think that speaks volumes to just kind of like how he approaches his game on the mound. And like everybody said, like the velo is going to come for him. Like, he doesn't really need to worry about that right now. Just keep pitching.
Well, and another guy along the same lines as Chase Lockwood, long been a performer, pitchability. The only thing is he throws left-handed, is Ian Tosi. We briefly touched on him earlier. Mount Carmel, been their ace. Man, if there's a game to win, I want that guy having the ball. And he did it down at the Future Games. Was the same guy, bulldog mentality, love the look on the mound. The only thing for him was the velo was way harder than we'd ever seen it. So, kudos to him having some more in the tank and showing it off while still pitching, while still showing the big time changeup, while not losing everything else that he does. He was a huge winner for me. Being left-handed with that kind of stuff, and I want to make sure I get his velos right. He touched 88. I saw him last year like 80, 82 and loved it. So you start talking, now we're talking 88, we're talking a well above average changeup, spin that's landing for strikes, and it's a big time arm. We led off with him in game 2 at the Future Games and was as advertised or better. And just for his stock, his future, super happy to see what he did down there.
We knew he was going to do his thing and dominate. Like, that's just what he does every single time. But like you said, showing he had more in the tank, kind of going off like what Tyler said, but maybe in a slightly different way. Like, he's always had that, but he just doesn't need it, and he just pitches. And like showing it off when you like can, and while still kind of doing your thing, is like the most impressive thing that he did for me.
We went with Dylan Huff right after Ian Tosi. Dylan Huff is from Glenwood High School. We've talked on him a little bit, how that's a school that, especially recently, has just been pumping out high-level arms. And I think he's the next in line. Arm talent-wise, I think he's one of the best arms we had on Team Illinois. I think it's a special arm. I really do. And the body type, the mover that he is, I was highly impressed. It was my first action seeing him live in game, because I know you guys saw him early this spring. We saw him then pop a little bit more this summer. And I think he was another arm that was down there in Rantoul that we got eyes on, because that's where that video was with the breaking ball. But he actually kind of struggled at the Future Games. Dylan did, just with the scattered control, and was having to do a lot of work with the baseball out there. It's all turf fields. It's high levels of humidity. We got the rosin bags out there, but he didn't seem comfortable the whole time. And to me, one of his best pitches is a big time slider that he maybe flashed one that, is truly what he can do. So like, to me, he's shown better for us than he did at the Future Games, but at the same time, the arm talent was still highly, highly evident. And Diego, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit here, because I know you're in on Dylan and have seen him a good amount.
I think for me, one of the cooler things and one of the more impressive things about doing all this is he came to our Southern Illinois preseason ID, and he was in the middle of basketball season, 83, 85, really clean bullpen. The spin, it was more of a traditional curveball with less velocity at that event, but it was good, landing it for strikes. Then he comes out in the summer, and he's starting to touch 88, 89 with a hammer, sweeper, slider. So the jump that he took in that 3, 4, 5 month span, he was up to 90 at the Future Games. Honestly, Drew, I think you hit on it perfectly with the humidity. It was a little hard to grip that slider because he really does have one of the better breaking balls in the 26 class. It just wasn't, unfortunately, fully on display in this look. But 6'3", 170, football player, basketball player, comes from Chatham, which is a big-time high school, like you mentioned. Ultra easy arm talent. I mean, he was up to 89 in his first warm-up pitch. I think you're talking about a guy that will finish his high school career in that 15 to 18 range overall with the talent and the projectability that is still left to come.
Another guy that came down and threw right after Dylan, and to me, and from what we had seen as a staff, probably left more to be desired, was Tyler Townsend from Sycamore. We had seen him in the past. He's a physical, strong-bodied, athletic prospect that has a live arm. Been up to 89. We'd seen things come across with even firmer than that this summer. The velo was not there down there at the future games, and I'm sure he was upset about it as well. First inning was a little scattered. Second inning, he came back out there, worked an ultra efficient inning, got a couple fly balls, really, really quick inning, and happy that he was able to, get out of his 2-inning stint that way. But for me, a guy like Dylan Huff and a guy like Tyler Townsend, if you've seen them in the past, like if you saw Dylan Huff this summer, if you saw Tyler Townsend throwing the ball well this summer, like who they truly are. And what's good is if you're that college coach that truly knows who Tyler is or knows who Dylan is, maybe there's not going to be as many coaches on them now. And I hate that for the kid. But sometimes it's a blessing in disguise for those schools that have done their homework before. Because if I'm a coach at a mid-major and I've been doing my, homework on this guy that's up to 90 with a good slider and he goes there and he's not throwing a ton of strikes and the slider isn't as good as I've seen, I am fist pumping because I'm like, I know he's better than this. We actually have a shot at him, on and on and on. But yeah, Tyler Townsend, we'll be following him moving forward because we know that, the stuff is a lot better than what he showed down there as well. Rounding out that day 2 was RJ Duncan and Keaton Reinke on the mound. And RJ Duncan was scheduled to throw 1 inning. We were able to get him 2. And he continued to impress. We had seen him at the Central Illinois Open a couple weeks before the future games. He earned an invite off of that, where he showed a strong arm and a really good slider. And he came into the future games and he was kind of owning who he was, talking about like Ian Tosi and Chase Lockwood. Like he was not trying to play easy catch and, nibble a corner. He was, I've got a strong arm. I'm going to show it off. Come and get some. Here's the fastball. And he was throwing a really hard slider off of it. And it was really impressive, strong arm, late inning bullpen type of stuff is the way that it struck me.
He was up to 92. We were in normal at that Central Illinois Open. He touched 91, where in previous outings we had seen him, mid upper 80s, and then came into to normal at the Central Illinois Open and popped a 91, and then the future games was 88 to 91, touched 92, and his slider was 78 to 81. Like he's throwing his breaking balls pretty hard too, and they were good pitches. So yeah, it was a good look at RJ. And also his dad was a really good baseball player at Illinois State, home run leader for them.
Just kind of another one to chalk up on the list with guys that were on Team Illinois with some bloodlines there. No, I really like RJ. I think there's a bright future there. He's another physical prospect. And bright futures, last 2 arms to mention are Keaton Reinke and Chase Milburn. Reinke he's a football guy, a high-level football guy, and I think the future remains to be seen on what sport he'll actually, gravitate to or get the most love from, but he's a wide receiver in football. And he is a very interesting right-handed pitcher in baseball, and he's also highly athletic and can play a position and can really run long strided, just the way you would envision a receiver. But on the mound, really interesting. It's long levered. It's kind of exactly what I thought it was going to be down there. There's some rawness in there still. And to me, that's only a positive for him. He's so far from being a finished product. We talked about Cameron Jenkins being a thoroughbred. I look at Keaton Reinke the same way. He's a thoroughbred athlete that's getting on the mound and just pitching off of pure arm talent. It's upper 80s. It's a breaking ball that he was consistently landing for a strike. And he worked 2 clean outings down there, 2 clean 1-inning stints at the future games.
Probably my favorite kid there. Just like I talked to him quite a bit, especially in the bullpen. Like I'm really in on the kid himself. Wide receiver 1 on varsity. Like the kid's a physical specimen, like you said, like thoroughbred. Yeah, I mean it's a carry fastball, pretty big over the top breaking ball, and he threw one of the breaking balls 3-0. Like his second outing, he was kind of spraying it a little bit with the fastball. It was the first batter of his first inning, and it's like, oh, here's a breaking ball 3-0, and then right after that, then he just carved. So it's like he's just pitching, man. He's just doing his thing out there. Great kid, and yeah, he's got a really bright future.
And he was coming off of 7-on-7s and football. He had, like
His arm was all cut
Yeah.
up too. Like, yeah,
He's
he's got a
getting
lot
bumps
going
and
on.
bruises, so it's not like he's coming in there 100% and just letting it eat. Like he's grinding. Chase Milburn, another Edwardsville product. He and Hunter Ball actually threw back to back two Edwardsville arms in Game 3 of the nightcap there to end the future games, and he was exactly who we thought he was going to be, if not a little more interesting. He really showed a true 3-pitch mix in his 1 inning stint, which I loved to see. You get your 1 inning, it's easy to go out there and throw 10 fastballs and 2 breaking balls and call it a day, but he was mixing and matching the entire time. It did not matter what count. All 3 pitches I thought showed above average. He wasn't getting great swings on them, and he worked a really efficient inning, and he came off the mound, and the look in his eye and just giving him the high five coming off the mound, that is a competitive kid. And there's no doubt, like no reason in my mind why he had so much success this spring for Edwardsville. Getting them through the playoffs, he ended up being basically their number 1 arm. And Diego, you can talk more of this, but marched them through the playoffs to state, and it hit me right then when I saw him walk off the mound on why, because he was a different kid coming off that mound than he was in the dugout, the days prior, the innings prior, and I loved to see it. The right kind of compete is something you're always looking for as a scout, as a coach. The talent, all that stuff, when you do this a long time, like that becomes easier and easier to see. What makes a guy tick, that's really what separates these guys at that level, at that high level. It's the inner passion, the love of the game, the competitiveness. And man, he is one competitive dude. So, Diego, anything else you have on those guys?
Drew, I think you touched on it earlier with when you were talking about the base running portion of the podcast, how it's kind of a lost art. I think the flat out field of pitch has kind of been going more away and is a little bit of a lost art in a sorts. And I mean, as a sophomore at Edwardsville, who were back-to-back state champs and went to state again this year, 61 in the 3rd innings, .57 ERA, 5 earned runs, 19 walks, .91 whip, 10-0 record. You don't do that at that high school, in that conference, in the playoff run against the teams you're playing, if you don't know how to, 1, flat out pitch, and 2, how to flat out compete. And like, he can spin, he can turn over a changeup to both sides of the plate. He'll put the fastball on either corner whenever he wants it. He's 6'2", 205, goes about his business. He's a quiet kid, but it's quiet confidence. And when he's on the mound, Chase Milburn knows he's going to get dudes out. And I totally agree on the showing the 3 pitches. Like, that's who he is. He went out there in his 1 inning of work, and he told everybody that was there, this is who I am. This is how I get guys out. This is what works for me. And I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to beat that season that he just had this year at all, because it's ridiculous. But don't be surprised if he does it next year or the year after that. He was a 2nd-team All-State guy for us as a sophomore.
That's awesome stuff, and I appreciate your guys' efforts throughout this whole year. I kind of open this call as this is a year-long project for us, is the way I look at it. It's something that is always on our mind, something we're always talking about when we go to high school games in the spring. If we're not tracking down a draft arm or a high-level uncommitted prospect, like there's probably a good chance we're watching a potential future games type of prospect. It is something that's always there, and you guys going out and crushing the spring coverage, crushing the summer, all the tournaments, all the events that we run throughout the year, and just having all the eyes and all the quality eyes that we had throughout the state this year was a huge reason why Team Illinois was assembled the way it was assembled, and a huge reason why I thought we were as good as we were. It's not just one person trying to track down all these players. It's multiple looks from multiple eyes, from multiple viewpoints, and guys that like different things and have sweet tooths for different things. And I think that's what what is so great about where we're at right now in the state and the way we're able to collect these guys. We got guys from Valmeyer, Brimfield, Glenwood, Chicago, St. Charles North. You got them from all over the state, and there is good baseball in the entire state, and it is our job to find them. And it is our job to put you guys, those players that are deserving of it, to put them in a situation to be seen by those schools and let them go out there and do their thing. And what I love is hearing from parents and players, hey, such and such school called me. This never would have happened without the Future Games. Or, hey, my kid gained a ton of confidence, and it all started with the Future Games, knowing that he could perform against that high-level competition. And no, I just want to thank you guys for everything that you do to, put that team together and to make this the success that it was. And obviously that leads into the Illinois State games as well, which I think we should probably have another call on and talk through those players, because there are so many players that came to the Illinois State games that are worthy of being seen by those schools that all the, Future Game guys are seen by. And to me, that's the whole crux of why we run that event, to give the Future Games type of feel where you have a showcase, you play 3 games for all of the players in Illinois, not just 22 that, are lucky enough to be chosen for this team, but all of the good players from all of the different grad classes. And if you want to have a chance to make the Future Games for next year's team, get in front of us. Find a way to get in front of us. That is my biggest advice, is get in front of us. And if you're good enough, if you catch our eye, if you do something to follow, make us circle you and follow you, then go do it in a game. And do it in a game, because it's great to do it in a showcase all day long. Getting in front of us and doing it at a showcase is how you're going to get the attention. But then doing it in a game is how you're going to move the needle and how you're going to get offers. It's how you're going to get invites to big events. You got to do it on the field. But if you want to have an opportunity of us to see it, see you and know who you are, get in front of us. So, no, that's all I had. Thank you guys. I know this was a longer call today, but I felt like that team warranted everything that we talked about and the time that we gave to it. So,
sweet. Thanks, guys.